I think at my age, she was told that she had the heart of a 50-year-old and could never get pregnant again, and she never did. Well, she did actually. In 1973, she did try, but unfortunately, she had a miscarriage. And after that, they told her, don't try again, because you could die if you do. It must have been a terrible, terrible time for her, and I really feel for her. Moving on, towards the end of school, my mum got me a VIC-20, and then I got a Commodore 64, and I started to crack the games. I started to get Infinite Lives and everything, but I used to spend a lot of time on it, but it did help my coordination. Sports-wise, you can imagine, last to be picked for the team, or in the goal, and you better save that goal or you'll get a good hiding afterwards, you know. That changed when I started swimming and also started weightlifting. I think I excelled at those, but cross-country running and football and rugby, well, rugby was a laugh. They told me to run with the ball, so what did I do? I decided to hold on to it, so everyone piled on top of me, and he blew his whistle hard, and he's a Welsh bloke, he was. And he was a real obnoxious piece of work. He was another teacher, said, "Hey, you boy, smiler." I can't really do the Welsh accent. And he really was competitive, you know. His team had to be the best. Instead of it was about the children, it was about, how he looked. Do you know what I mean? And it was terrible. Terrible. There were some terrible teachers. There were some lovely ones who at least helped me. Mr. Thomas, Mrs. Homer, Mrs. Kane, Mrs. Edwards. They were really nice. But there was other ones that ripped up my work in front of the entire class and said, "What the hell's this?" because it was like spidery writing. Things that they just couldn't do now. Things that they get a hit for now. I mean, my God, if you do that now, the parents can go down to school and literally rip the hell out of them. I mean, no wonder people don't want to do teaching anymore. You know, if you so much as shout at a child now, you might get your head belted outside the school by a parent or whatever. So, I was accused of a lot of things at the school. The worst one was when I was set up for Roger Gardner and the screwdriver. Basically, there was this screwdriver. It was like adolescent thing, you know. The ink came down and it was a naked lady. I think it was taken from France. And unfortunately, you know, someone set me up and said I tried to stab Roger Gardner with a screwdriver, and I didn't. Roger Gardner's dad was a priest or a vicar or something, so he was well established, so they believed Roger. Also, he walked with a limp, so they were sorry for him because they said, he was crippled and he had a disability. My disability didn't count. You know, my disability didn't count at all. But then again, I wasn't disabled. To them, I was just an obnoxious kid. I can remember doing a lot of things that my uncles, regret, but they thought I just needed a damn good hiding at the time. I think the one thing I can remember is my cousin Sam. I threw pepper in the air. I don't know why I did it, and it went in Sam's eyes, and Uncle Keith got very annoyed about that. 9th birthday. Grabbing the grass in Uncle Gray's, He kept on telling me not to, and I kept on grabbing the grass. I didn't know why I did it. Sitting in for hours watching a text card. Not that that was hurting anybody, but it must have made my mum think, what the hell's up with him? And then I always used to ask her questions. Why does a bee sting? Why does a crocodile lay eggs, How does electricity get there? So Mum used to get all these books, and I've still got one called the Test Card Book, which has got all the test cards from the world. My mum managed to get hold of that from IBA. And as a child, I made friends very seldom. There was no place where Mum could go, and words like retarded, spastic, you can imagine it, or gaylord or whatever we used, because people didn't understand, if you didn't like football, you were gay. if you acted in a certain way, you were retarded, you know. If you walked slightly differently, you were spastic, you know. I mean, these words were used. I'm using them because these were the words that were used. Now, after leaving school, I managed to get a job. But again, I thought things would change, like from school. But because I was different, again, I was bullied then. And I was even grabbed round the neck again by a bloke by the name of Richard. And he was an obnoxious piece of work as well. So I got to learn that my condition meant violence. My condition meant that it got people upset. I blamed myself for my condition. Didn't help that I didn't have a girlfriend either. So I used to sit in my room and go to bed and play games, and that was my life. And I don't know when it changed, whether I made the conscious effort after the age of 21. I think when it changed actually was when I had to meet people through work, because there was no way that you could get disability benefits then. Nobody saw me as disabled, so I worked in factories, I worked in shops. I had to meet people. Some of them took me under their wing. At the first job, mechanics took me under their wing, and actually Richard got an accidental knock down the stairs. You know, it's a shame, you know, things happen, you know. Barry accidentally, you know, elbowed him. Because I was only 15 at the time, 15 and a half, and Richard was like 20 to 30-ish, well, late 20s, and treated me like that, and the mechanics saw it, and they were a bit pissed off, basically, to put it bluntly. When I was about 20-ish, I'd say about 23, I met Amanda. She was special needs. And very volatile. But it was my first real try at a relationship. The relationship should have really finished after a day. I mean, she was really screwed up in the head. She'd been hurt in the past, you know. She had her own problems. She shouted and she bawled and she flipping pushed me, and she went on about how she hit such and such or whatever, and it's a terrible relationship. And on my birthday she even got a knife out the kitchen or something. She was so stupid. I mean, the one I call my brother Rick, who he really is like a brother, he came down and crashed down with him and said, "Is it safe to come down now?" Just trying to defuse the situation. I won't say Rick understood, but we fought like brothers. And he was upset because my mum was upset. So therefore he thought I was deliberately trying to upset my mum. So we used to have arguments and fights and things like that, which at the time used to upset me, because I thought that, you know, my mum didn't want to know. But she didn't know. But we are like that as brothers. And if he'd have been my real brother, you know, I don't think I could have wished for a better brother, you know. I mean, he's been there. If I said to him now I needed a lift somewhere, he'd be down, you know. He's just a decent bloke. He's a decent bloke, simple as that. When they used to say at school, "Are you Stephen's brother?" he used to say, "Yes." So once he came down to school, and three lads, I think, were picking on me and trying to take the sweets off me, and his bike accidentally skidded into them. "Give him the sweets back now," he said. A bit like the Fonz, really. It was quite funny, because Rick used to be, he almost gone off the rails when he met my mum. And no relationship and that. It's a difficult thing. Best way to describe it is, if you've watched Happy Days, and how the Fonz doesn't exactly go off with Mrs. C, does he? He respects her. But there's no like, oh, you know, he's off with Mrs. C, you know, behind Howard's back or whatever. That's what it's like. That's what it's like. That's the best way to describe it, really. That's the relationship between Mom and Rick, and always will be. Oh yeah, I was saying about computers. I got good, and then of course opportunities arose for the adult training schemes of doing computer courses.